And in 2005, the U.S. Senate approved a resolution for its failure to enact federal anti-lynching legislation decades ago, legislation that was repeatedly blocked in committee by senators from the South. In addition, in the summer of 2008, the U.S. House passed a non-binding resolution introduced by Representative Steve Cohen from Memphis, apologizing for slavery and for racial segregation. Southerners of both races have also established many Truth and Reconciliation, M-I-N-I, Truth and Reconciliation Commissions at the local level. Again, we heard a great deal about that. And though none of these enjoyed the stature, influence, or cultural resonance of many of the PRCs in the countries about which we spoke earlier, several of the South's PRCs or their precursors have received a fair amount of press and public attention, and some appear, just as you heard earlier, to have made a genuine difference, at least in their own communities. One of these is the 1898 Centennial Foundation, which, supported both by the city of Wilmington and the state of North Carolina, spearheaded a highly successful commemoration of the violent 1898 coup d'etat instigated by whites in the Democratic Party to remove Wilmington's biracial city coalition consisting of Republicans and populists. One of the consequences of its investigations was that in 2007, the North Carolina State Senate expressed, quote, profound regret that violence, intimidation, and force, unquote, were used to overthrow a duly elected government. The staggering amount of anti-black violence in Rosewood, Florida in 1922 was also rediscovered after 60 years of cultural amnesia. During a week of what can only be called a frenzied white riot, at least 6 African Americans and 2 whites were killed, and virtually every black home in the town was reported to have been destroyed. First through the efforts of an investigative reporter in 1982, and then through CBS's TV program 60 Minutes a year later, the story of Rosewood was resurrected. The Florida legislature subsequently passed a bill calling for the compensation to survivors and their descendants, and in 1994, Florida Governor Lawton Child signed the Rosewood Compensation Bill, a $2.1 million package to compensate for what Governor Childs termed, quote, a blind act of bigotry, unquote. Though some have called for an official Truth and Reconciliation Commission in Mississippi, we have yet to see any regional-wide or state-level TRC-type hearings or hear any official apologies for Jim Crow from any state, nor have we witnessed purges of any magnitude, and other than the Rosewood Compensation Act, we have little evidence of any southern state or organization housed in the region, such as the Southern Baptist Convention, which did apologize for slavery in 1995, offer financial reparations to African Americans for abuses during, indeed, for the very existence of Jim Crow. Perhaps some say this is as it should be. We, white Southerners, have now repented for our past sins. We've atoned enough. The past, after all, is the past, and nothing, not a single act of restorative justice, can ever change that fact. Why then root around there, especially when doing so is without doubt difficult, both emotionally and logistically, and costly too, possibly even counterproductive, in that old wounds and old hostilities may be brought to the surface, relived yet again in pain. There is also the issue of personal responsibility. Why should those of us who were not alive, or who were too young to be moral agents in our own right, try to repair the damages done by past wrongs that we ourselves did not commit? One can thus understand why many are reluctant to dig up and dig through the South's Jim Crow past, especially so because we might discover what people like our fathers and grandfathers did and did not do back then. What our friends or friends of our families did or did not do. We might even remember what we ourselves did and did not do back then. So one can appreciate the argument that we should let go of the past. But problem with this line of thought is that the past just will not stay in the past. The past, as we have seen, haunts repair and sabotages personal and collective amnesia. Earlier I said that the past persists in the lives and deaths of those in today's South. Throughout the region, we see this persistent in the unemployment and poverty rates for African Americans, double, sometimes treble, those of whites. Mississippi, for example, 16% of white folk are poor. That's 4% greater than the national average. 44% of African Americans are poor in my state officially.